All right, so this is another video related to the toy block design activity. This one I want to show a bit about how to sketch out something else that might just be some kind of simpler blocks that are not necessarily interlocking. The puzzle piece one I had was very ambitious, so this one is just going to be pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna can I zoom in a little bit here? And we'll let that focus. All right. And I know this is a bit distorted, so just kind of work with that. That's just the way the camera is. So the idea I'm going to go for here is that I just have sort of an equilateral triangular block that goes back a certain distance. I've got a just a cubical block, if you will. So a cube-shaped block here that goes back some distance. And then I'm also going to have a spherical block, which, well, you know, that doesn't necessarily look like a sphere right now, but something that can help communicate that in some sketching is some shading. We know that the underside of a block would, be darker if the light was coming from this way. Maybe there'd even be like a shadow on the ground around it. So those are actually some things that you can do. You could even do that to these to give them a bit more of a three-dimensional feeling if you're sketching things, and maybe a little depth, is to add in some light shading or something like that. Think of where your light source is, and on the opposite side of that, if your light was up here, the sun or something, this is what these are going to come out looking like. So that's the first step, is to just conceive of the idea. Now, of course, the next step we have is we have to figure out, well, what are going to be the sizes on these? And something you can really do is you can say, all right, I'm going to actually sketch right on here. And I'm going to say, let's say this is going to be 3 inches. Now, this is not drawn to scale, so this is definitely not 3 inches tall, but that will still communicate our idea. Maybe the distance from this point to this point, from the front to the back, is also going to be 3 inches. Actually, that might be a little weird. Let's do 2 inches. Let's have it be shorter. 2 inches. And then I also know, let's see, I've got the height. Oh, and if this was equilateral and all these sides are the same, you know, we could put little hash marks on them to show that. This is obviously a square here, so this would be like, let's stick with the same amounts. Let's go 3, 3. And remember, the way we sketch our dimensions should be the same as the way we draw them. A starting point, an ending point with the arrows in between. And then let's go for our depth. Let's go back about 2 inches. So this can really help to solidify the sizes that you're thinking of. And if this were a circle, right, a sphere is going to look the same from all its different angles. We'll get to showing the different sizes in a while. But if we know that the overall diameter of this is going to be about 3 inches also, then we are pretty much golden for all of these in terms of sizes. Now, remember, 3 inches is actually probably bigger than you think. So if we look at a scale, that's 3 inches. So, well, actually, that's not too huge. So it might just be big to fit on the green paper. So cool. So we have the rough sizes down, but now let's get these into like a front, top, and right side view. So we're going to have to think a little bit about geometry. I'm going to start with this one because it's definitely the easiest. I'm going to actually grab a separate sheet of paper here because I think it will make it simpler. I'm going to keep this off to the side and I'll pull it in when we need it. But so we're working with this cube shape, which we actually said is 2 inches deep. So you know what? I'm going to make that look a little shorter because it's going to be shorter than it was long. Right about there. Cool. Great. Now, okay, square. So our front view of the square, imagine that we are a person. If this was all the ground all over here, we are a person standing with our feet on the ground right in front of this, and we are looking with our eyeball. That's our eyeball. We're looking right at this front surface. So we're going to see a square, and that square is going to be 3 inches wide and 3 inches tall. And then we have to think, how's this thing going to look from the top? Well, we can imagine that we are in a helicopter. I always like to use a helicopter. There's sort of the tail of a helicopter, that spinny thing on the back. There's like the cockpit window thing. There's a little skid so it can land. Beautiful. We are like looking down from this. Here's a door with a window. There's a little guy and he's hanging out of this and he's looking downward with his eye and he's seeing this top surface. And the way we do that, remember, you don't even have to think that way. We can just project lines up, and of course we'll be using our T-square and our triangle. Project lines up and then set a line for the starting point. We know we should leave in between here about a 1.5 inch gap when we're actually drawing it. So that's the front, and we know that the distance going backwards we said was 2 inches. So if this was 3 inches, break that into 3 parts. From here to here is about 2 inches. So sometimes I even bring my fingers and I don't move them, and I say, there's my depth, 2 inches deep. And this is still the sketch. Okay, 2 inches deep, and we can label that. Let's label it on the same side. We'll put a 2, our arrows. And now we have our block sketched out. So this is what it's going to look like when it ends up on that piece of green paper. And I'm going to go through how to put these on the green paper later on here. But let's do the rest of these now. Let's look at this triangle here. Now this is a little trickier because we have to say, well, how can I make sure that all the sides of this triangle are actually going to be equal? Well, I definitely know that, let's see, we can't do a circle because that would be bigger than what we want. What I can do is I can break this into 2 triangles, 2 right angle triangles. And if I know that all the sides, if I know that this is 3 tall, I can draw a line up that's 3, and I'm going to also know that all these are 30 degrees because 30 degrees, or am I mistaken? There's 180 degrees in a triangle, so 180 divided by 3 is actually 60 degrees. Excuse me. So we'll have 60 degrees for all the sides of this triangle. And with our 60 degrees on each of these triangles, we'll be able to do the rest of this. So if we think about this, we would have a 3-inch, well, let's go like this. We have to think about the geometry. When we're drawing this on a piece of paper, we're going to start with some point. We're going to go up. We're going to draw a 3-inch construction line up. And then we're going to, if this whole angle here has to be 60 degrees, then this angle would be 30 degrees. And when we're drawing this on a piece of paper, we're going to be able to get our triangle and our T-square. So I'm just pre-thinking how I'm going to draw this so that I can figure it out. And we can use our 30, 60, 90 triangle. Oh, look at this right there. Oh, that's the wrong side. And we'll be able to draw a line up. We'll be able to line up our triangle, get a 30-degree line down. Right, from there, we can flip this around, get our 30-degree line down. And remember, we had made this line 3 inches, just like we wrote in our dimensions on our original sketch. It was 3 inches tall. And we can draw these 2 lines coming down. And then we would just connect these 2 from the bottom of the line, draw a line across. And again, I'm going to show how to do this later, but I'm thinking about it now as I'm sketching, so that I can make this all work real nice. All right, so that would be how we would get our triangle drawn. And now the next step, of course, is to get our top view on in there. So just like we did for our square here, we would bring straight lines up for all of the edges. And that was a little uneven, but that's okay. We would space them 1.5 inches apart. And then we said that this one is also going to be 2 inches deep, just like the other one. So I'm going to look at that. It's going to be the same size there. And really, this is going to look very similar to the first one. It's just now there's a line in the middle, because if we're seeing a triangle from the top, that is what it's going to look like. And I'm going to grab a toy here, so you guys can see this. I have some shapes. Right? Here is a triangle shape, equilateral right there, front view, top view. We're going to see that line right in the middle, and we're going to see the edges around the outside. So just to show you, a really straightforward example there, that is what that's going to look like from the top view. So hopefully that helps that make sense. Our sphere is, with a fresh sheet of paper here, really just going to be a circle. And you know what? I don't think we need to draw a front and a top view for this, because this is just going to be like you put a pencil compass on here and you're going to open it up to half of 3 inches and you're going to sweep that around. And then you can put a little note over here that says this object is spherical. And there you would have your drawing. So that would be that spherical part of that. You could get away with just doing one view for that, and that's okay for this assignment. So this is how you would sketch these out. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to have how you would actually draw them now. But so stay tuned for that coming up here momentarily. All right, so now I've got my green paper tape down here. I am going to go through and I am going to show how to add the title block to this, just in case there is anybody who needs to still see how we do that, needs a refresher, since this is in fact the first assignment of this course. So I tape my green paper down with the my T-square, using that to make sure that it's nice and straight. I am going to lightly mark. Actually, I should be using a 4H pencil. This is a 2H pencil. Do I got a 4H here? Oh, come on. H. There you go. Where's a 4H pencil when you need it? I'm going to use a 4H pencil so that it's nice and light and I can come back and darken it later. But I'm just going to make a mark using the acrylic there as a spacer. From the top of my page, I've got this taped on here so this doesn't work so well. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go and steal this distance by making 2 marks on a white sheet of paper. And I'm going to bring this up here and just line one of them up with the top. Otherwise, I'm going to bump into something with my T-square. So you could keep using the acrylic if you've got room, but because I'm working on this document cam surface, it doesn't work for me. So I use that to mark my distance. And then you can use, if you've got scratches on your triangle here, you can use that as the spacer to get your side marks on here. So I'm going to line up. It's hard to see with the glare right now, but I'm going to line up that line here with the edge of my paper so that I can get that distance. And then again, I'm in a weird situation because of the surface I'm working on here. I have to do this in 2 parts, but you should be able to use the long side of your triangle and line it up like this and just do the whole mark straight up. So I just, do problem solve on your own there, but you can use my strategies. The right side of my page is going to be a little similar here. I'm actually going to reuse my mark that I put on that little sheet of paper earlier for my spacing over on this side. So line that up with the edge. You can use that like a template, like a little scale. Oh, and see over here, I can flip this and actually have it go the right way to be able to go like this. Ta-da. All right, there's a main part of my border. I'm going to add the title block, which is another distance up. So we've got this acrylic here. I'm going to line the wood up with the bottom line that I made, and I'm going to draw another straight line across. And it actually looks like I didn't quite complete this down here, so we'll sneak in, fix that up. Beautiful. And then we're going to chop this up into different distances. This is posted in Google Classroom if you need it. But the distances, it's basically 2 boxes that are each 2.5. So you'll make a mark at 2 and then a mark at 5. And then all the rest of them are just 1.5. So we'll go 6.5, 8, 9.5, and then all the way to the end. Then we can just draw some vertical lines up. I'm going to actually flip my T-square and triangle this way. Vertical line, vertical line, vertical line, vertical line. Bam, bam. And the lighter you make these, the better. I'm doing them dark enough so that you guys can see them at home when you're watching this. We also want to put some guidelines across here, so I'm going to use the regular side of my scale. I'm going to just line it up right on here, and I'm going to go to the 3/8 marks So there should be 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. That's probably hard to see, but 1/8 I made a mark, 2/8 I made a mark, and then 3/8 would be on the line. And I'm just going to get myself some nice horizontal lines, light ones across here. These are my guidelines for writing down here in this box. And then I can fill in the rest. So this is going to be C-PP High School. I'm going to actually use 2H for this because that's what we should use for writing. You would put your name in here, so I'll just write your name. Let's put the class. This is Tech. Draw. You can abbreviate to. The date today, as of making this, is 2/5/21, February 5th, 2021. Let's put the scale. I'm going to be working scale in 1 inch equals 1 inch. And last but not least, the name of this drawing. I'm going to try to fit both of these on here. So 3, let's see, 3. Wow. Wow. This is just called, let's call it square block. Give these things names. Square block. Or you could call this toy block 1. There we go. So I'll try to get this first one on here, and then we'll see how everything else fits. So using those sizes, we have to kind of calculate. We have to ask ourselves, is this going to fit on this page? Well, to figure out if it's going to fit, you can measure across here and say, how much room do I have to work in? Well, it looks like I have about 11 inches this way, and I have about 7 3/4 inches vertically. So if I can just make sure that everything is going to fit in that space, it's going to work well. If I think about this, I said I have total of 7 3/4 inches to cram all this in this way. This is, let's see, 3 inches from here to here, right? Plus 1.5 inches plus 2 inches. So let's go 3 plus 1 1/2 plus 2. That's 3 inches, 4.5 inches, 5, 6 inches, 6.5 inches. So 6 1/2 inches. Well, 6.5 inches is definitely less than 7 3/4. So this is going to fit vertically. And then let's look at the width. It's going to be 3 inches wide. So this was height. Width. 3 inches wide. I said I have 11 inches to work with. Well, the whole thing is only going to be 3 inches, right? So I may actually be able to get both of these on one piece of paper, because if I leave 1.5 inches between them, so width, this would be 3, 6. That's 6 plus even 1.5 inches of space in between them. Maybe I could even leave 2 inches. So if I had 3 plus 3 plus 2 inches in between them, that's going to come out to 6, 7, 8. 8 inches is still less than 11 inches for my total width of my green page. That's going to fit. Okay, so I think I can get both of these blocks. So I'm going to actually change this to toy blocks 1 and 2. All right, so I'm going to be able to fit both of these on here. And like I said, I'm leaving 2 inches of space in between them. So the total height of this, if I'm trying to like lay out these drawings on this page and I want to kind of center them, the total height of all of these put together, if I were to draw a big box around them, like with this highlighter here, I want to know how much this drawing area is so I can find the center of it and then go like 1 inch out to start this drawing, because I left 2 inches in the middle, and then 1 inch this way to start this drawing. So the idea is chopping things up, breaking them down, finding a point you can work from, and going off of there. So I am going to calculate that total height. Well, we figured that out. It's 6.5 inches. 6 1/2. And then this overall width here was going to be 8 inches. So basically, if I find the center of this and I come over half of 8 is 4, right? And half, if I come over 4 inches, so from here to here is 4 inches, and then I come down half of this distance is 3 1/4. That is going to bring me to this point. I can draw this drawing, then I can go over 2 inches, I can draw this drawing, and it's all going to fit on this green piece of paper. So that's what you gotta just think, how can I break this down? How can I make this easy for myself to make sure that it's going to fit? So I'm going to start by finding the center of the whole sheet of paper. because I want this box to be centered on the whole sheet of paper. And then I'm going to find that point, and then I'm going to start drawing my block. So to find the whole center of the whole piece of paper, we know we can use diagonals, or we should know. So I'm just flipping my T-square over, making sure the two corners are touching. I'm going to draw a light diagonal line there, and then I'm going to find the spot where everything crosses this way. All right, so that's the center of my page. And now I want to go over 4 inches and down 3 inches from there, which I am going to do like this, over 4 inches. And I'm cheating. I'm not really using the T-square right now, but it would be good to, make sure that you do if you can. But for this part, we can just kind of eyeball a little bit. So I'm coming down 3 1/4, and that's going to give me that corner right there, which corresponds to this corner for this block. So I know that I'm going to have, if I start drawing this now, I'm going to have a line that goes 3 inches, 3 inches. I'm basically going to draw a 3-inch square. So I'm going to make a light line of any length, and then I'm going to mark on that line 3 inches over. Then I can come in with my triangle, and I can make a line that goes straight up through that mark. And then I'm going to mark on that 3 inches as well. 3 inches up is about there. Then I can bring that line straight over. I already know where this part ends, and these are super light, but you should still be able to see them because we want to keep everything super light. Come up, and there is the rough outline of my square. To create the top view, I'm just going to bring more lines straight up. Well, I've already got them, right? More lines straight up. So we'll project these upwards. I got to try not to bump into anything there. And we know we have to have 1.5 inches between the views. We wrote that down before, so I'm just going to measure up 1.5 inches. And I'm going to hope and pray that this all fits, but I think it's going to. This is going to be 2 inches deep, so I'm going to measure up 2 inches from my 1.5 inch mark and draw 2 horizontal lines. And now I've got my block drawn. I just need to erase and darken these. And I can do that very easily using an eraser shield. I get in here, clean things up. And you might actually want to darken the lines and then erase. But anything like that is going to work for you to clean this up so you can get some nice looking drawings. Because then you're going to want to come in last and you're going to want to darken these lines by going back over them with your H pencil. I like to do horizontal lines first and then come back and do the vertical lines second. There we go. Vertical. 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 And we will carry on, and I'm going to go on to the triangle next over here. So I'm going to keep going with this. But if you get this now, you can stop or you can just keep watching. Hey, all right. So we already made that rectangular shape, though. Now it's time to tackle this triangle. Now, I actually realized earlier on when I was thinking about this still makes sense. This is 60 degrees for the overarching distance here. And that means half of that is 30 degrees. But the reality is, I don't actually know how long this line is. I only know how tall the height of the triangle is. And you should be able to agree with me that if I measured this distance from the corner of the paper up to the top of this triangle, and I stood it up on its end, it's actually, look at that, it's actually taller than 3 inches. So that means that's the same as about the bottom, but I have no idea what that is. So now I have to ask myself, well, what strategy could I use to get these lines to go in the right place? Well, I definitely know that this is going to be 60 degrees in here, okay? And I know about how wide I wanted this whole thing to be. What I could really do is I could just say right now, you know what? I'm going to make this distance 3 inches. I'm going to forget all about that so I don't have to worry about crazy triangle stuff. And now I can just draw a 3-inch line over, find the middle of the line, I can draw a 3-inch line over, and then I can just draw two 60-degree angled lines up from there, and wherever they meet is going to be the top of the triangle. So there's lots of different approaches to this. I'm going to go with this easier route, and I'm just going to say, well, one of the sides of my triangle is 3 inches. So I measured 2 inches away already from this because I said I was going to have 2 inches between my views, 2 inches between the views. And then I'm going to measure 3 inches over on the same line that lines up with the bottom of my rectangle. And I get this little distance here. So that's going to be the bottom of my triangle. And I could, like I started to say earlier, I could find the center of this. I could draw a line straight up. But I think the easiest way to do this is to remember, if this is a 90-degree angle and this is a 30-degree angle, and this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle, this angle right here is 60 degrees. If I line this up so that it's going right through the corner of that line there, and I draw a light line up to make sure everything's going to work, I flip this around and I draw a light line, make sure everything's nice and straight, a light line up from there. Wherever those two meet should geometrically be right where I want it to be. So that should have created a equilateral triangle with 3-inch sides, and I bet you if I go and I measure all of these sides, I'm going to find out that all of the lines are, in fact, look at that, 3 inches, bam. 3 inches. So that worked. So sometimes you need to think about how things are going to work out for you and ask for help if you're stuck. Now I'm just going to create that top view just like we talked about in the sketch and like we did with the rectangular shape on the left there. I'm just going to project the edges. Uh-oh, my triangle moved a little there at the end. I'm going to project the edges up. I'm going to use that inner line. I'm going to, again, project the edge up, project the middle up. Whoop. We got to measure up 1.5 inches to leave that same amount of space. So I'm going to just put a scale right on that line and go up 1.5 inches. I put my 1.5 inch mark right on the tip of the triangle. And then I measured up to 0. So this is going to be the front of our triangle right there. I just drew that line. I already have this line, this line, this line. I just need the back line. Well, we know this one is 2 inches deep, just like all the other ones. So I'm going to measure up 2 inches along one of these lines here. Draw me a horizontal line. And you know what? It's not perfectly lined up. We're going to roll with it. The spacing here is 1.5 inches. There are probably better ways I could have done this, but it's totally fine. Okay, remember, this is just a kind of opening drawing. I'm going to get in here and darken my lines now. So I can use the same tools I just did, but I want to make the lines nice and dark. Now I'm using an H pencil. Flip around, darken these. I said I'd use the inner line, right? So let's make sure we're using that. Oh, I got like a weird shadow going on there. I don't like how this looks right here. That's a little better. Oh, I forgot the middle line. Cool. Now I have my front and top views of the triangle. All right. The last step here is, of course, to add on our dimensions. And we already figured that out when we were sketching. So this is going to be 3 inches tall, 3 inches wide, 2 inches deep. And this is nice and simple. So I actually would want to put this dimension up between the views. So that's where I'm going to put it up there. And these two are fine on the sides like that. That'll be okay. So remember to space our dimensions. The real distance, if I were to be working over here, the real distance away that I want that arrow line is about the thickness of this plastic on the T-square. And those lines are going to come up, and we're actually going to leave gaps there. I should have done it in my sketch. I did it in all the other spots. We're going to leave a gap. So watch how I add this dimension right here. All right, remember, this is going to be 3. So this is the technique you should use. I'm going to slide the T-square until the wood is right on that line. I'm going to lightly draw a line across. I'm going to get in here with my triangle. I'm going to get some vertical lines, and again, light so that we can darken them later. And I left a little bit of a gap. It's pretty hard to see, but there's a gap there. So it shouldn't be touching. It should not be touching the corner. About 1/8 of an inch gap if you want to actually measure it. And then what I'm going to do to get the 3 in is I'm going to lay this opening, the widest opening on my eraser shield, right on the line. And there's some glare there, so it's probably hard to see. But the dimension line is right in the middle of that opening. And I'm going to just write 3. And I'm going to make sure it doesn't go outside of the eraser shield. And then I can just darken everything in. And I was using H for just sketching. But when you darken this, you should use 2H. And that's going to give you nice, thin, dark lines that will be the correct heaviness and everything that you want in order to give you a nice, crisp-looking dimension line there. And, of course, if you've got little dangly lines, like I've got some stuff hanging off of the edges here, you can get in with the eraser shield and lighten those up as you need to. Bam! And the last step would be to add the arrows. I would recommend putting all your dimensions in and adding the arrows very last. But if you want to do it one at a time, you can. It's just frustrating if you have to move these around. So I'm going to go and I'm going to stick this dimension. I'm going to do this one. This one's a little different because the arrows are going up and down. So we'll use this triangle again. Remember I talked about these scratched lines? Well, that scratched line is the same distance because I scratched it on there by going like this and scratching with my pencil compass. Same distance as the acrylic on this thing. And I got to block out the light. There we go, because I'm getting glare. Okay. And I'm going to do the same exact process. I'm going to lightly draw a line like that. I'm going to draw a line that extends off the edge, leaving a gap. Line that extends, there's a gap. So you can see the gap pretty well there. This gap actually isn't super clear, and we could make it a little more clear by using the eraser shield here just to clean that up. That's better. And this distance was 2 inches, so I'm just going to put in the middle, using my eraser shield again, I'm going to put a 2, and then I can darken all the lines and put the arrows in. And actually my extension lines, which are the ones on the edges that extend off of the object, they're about dark enough already. So I'm just going to darken the dimension line, which is the one that gets the arrows. Long and thin arrows. They should be pretty subtle, but they're there. And I don't like this little bit that's sticking off there, so let me just clean that. And we need another one that lines right up with this down here. So I'll put that in. And you just keep going like this, extending your lines in the spots where you need them. Extension. You can actually draw the extension lines first. Maybe I'll do that for the triangle when I go through the triangle, and then come back and draw these lines later on. You can even leave a gap right away for where you think the number is going to go. There's really, the order doesn't actually matter. Like right now, I could darken this and leave a gap. As long as you are planning correctly, you'll be okay. I'll put a 3 in there. I'll put some arrows on. So that's all set now. And let's just do this triangle over here. And I'm actually going to gently erase some of these extra lines because I think they're kind of getting visually in the way. We didn't need that one. We didn't need this one anymore. These were a little extra. Bam. Beautiful. Okay, those are off there. And now, like I said, so initially we said we were going to put the height, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to do this side. Really, I could do dimensions off of all these sides, or I could put a note that says all sides equal. Okay, so that would work too, and I think that's the route I'm going to go. So I'm going to actually put this dimension, I'm going to put it on the bottom. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to line the wood up with the bottom of the triangle. Oh, you know what? I said I would do it where I do the extension lines first. So let's try it that way. So instead, this time, I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to draw, leave a gap, leave a gap, and then I'll line the wood up. Now I'll add in the line in the middle. Well, I did it a little dark, so I can erase a bit here just to leave myself an opening to write the number in. And we said this is 3 inches. So I'll write inside this again, 3 inches. Neat. And then, like I said, I'm going to put a note that says all sides equal. And I'm just going to do that here. I'm going to make sure this is straight. I'm going to look at it carefully, visually, and line it up. I'm going to say all sides. And if I have to slide this over, I'm going to be careful that it's still lined up, equal. Okay. And, oh, I got to do the depth, right? So like I did before, how about I try adding these extension lines first? So we extend the edge, leaving a gap, extend the edge, leaving a gap. Oh, and that's not a very good gap. So again, I will clean it. Okay. And then let's use the line on our triangle. Like that. Leave a space for the 2. And I'll write inside my eraser shield, I'll put a 2. And, you know, I'm going to shorten these a little bit too. That looks good. Great. And let me just add some arrows. And now, voila, you have completed this. Oh, aside from darkening the border, so that would be the last step, is to come along here and darken all of the border edges so that it looks nice and crisp. You don't have to darken the little guidelines we use down there. You can just go like this and go around the outside of that title block. Do your top line up here and do your vertical lines. Why am I still doing this? And this vertical line, as you recall, I have to do this in 2 pieces because this arm gets in the way up here, the camera arm. Hey, there we go. That looks pretty good. So that there is a finished drawing, not a lot of lines. You can peel back this tape, get that off there. So I will do the circle last. I am going to do that up. Oh, I don't have time right now, so I will finish that up, but I will have that in this video too, and you can watch all of this for, if you need it. If you're good, though, you can probably go right now and go start working on stuff. I'm going to also clean up. There's some other spots on this that I still see some lines that I don't really want to see anymore. So gently, if you're getting close to an object or you have a corner like that, you can clean it up without getting it by using your eraser shield. So there we go. There's a nice drawing. Really looking good, and all set. All right, so this part of this video is going to show how to create a spherical object, which obviously is not super exciting here. It really just is going to look like a circle from both the front view and then the top view. Now, we would still project up and we would show it in the top view, and that would truly be the clearest way to show it, would be to show that in the front view and the top view, it is still a sphere. It looks a little smushed. That's because this lens distorts things a little bit, but you have to trust me that this is a circle. The reason I'm doing this, if you'll notice, this paper is turned sideways. This is not the normal way that I would orient a piece of paper when we're drawing, but there's no reason you can't turn a piece of paper this way. But the reason I'm doing it this way is because it's just not going to fit if we do it the other way. It's actually going to be really tight. In fact, if we think about how big this would be, if this has a diameter of 3 inches, okay, and we need to do a front view and a top view, and this one is also 3 inches, and this gap in between is 1.5 inches. All right, that's going to be 7.5 inches. That's going to be incredibly tight on our piece of paper here, where we only have 7 3/4 of an inch to work with. That's going to leave very little room at the top and bottom. So there's no reason we couldn't just rotate our paper sideways and give ourselves more room. So I'm going to throw a border on this. I'll tilt this down a little. If you think about it, the border, we use the same principle that we did earlier. I'm going to lock this. There we go. Same principle that we did earlier of using the acrylic to get our marks on there, the acrylic on the T-square. So a mark there on the bottom. On the top here, actually, I am bumping into the top of that. So I'm going to use another quick technique of just marking down on one side 3/8 of an inch and then marking down on the other side 3/8 of an inch from the top. And if you think about it, if those 2 points are both 3/8 of an inch from the top edge of this paper, then I can sneak in here with some object that does fit in. And as long as I connect those 2 points, it's still going to give me the right distance here. So there's lots of ways to sort of cheat the system and still get those distances in the way that you need them to be. I'm actually going to measure 3/8 of an inch in here too. If you were not working on this weird projector like I am, you would have much better luck creating all of these shapes and actually having everything come out right and all these lines. But I'm just working with what I've got here to create the best possible drawing while working on a video. And you might also find that like your triangle, like mine is right now, isn't actually quite long enough to get to the top of a piece of paper, so you may have to move it, and that could introduce some issues, but you don't have to worry about that too much because this is just early on. It's more about the design and less about the perfection of the lines. Ooh, that is way off. All right, that's a little better. I'm getting some wiggle here. Not ideal. I wish I were working on a drafting board, but this is the best way I can record this. So we'll pretend those lines are beautiful, even though they are not, and you all should strive for more beautiful lines than I am producing here. To add a title block down here, if I zoom, okay, you might say to yourself, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to create a title block if I don't have the same measurements? I'm still coming up for that second line to make my title block in here. What I say is measure this and ask yourself, all right, I need to chop this into how many boxes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. 6 boxes, right? Well, it's about 8 inches wide. How about I do, I could do 2 inches, 2 inches, and then 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. And that should come out to be okay. So I'm going to do 2 inches, 2 inches, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and that last box is a little bigger than I would want it to be. But this part does not have to be perfect. Again, it's about the design and less about the layout. It's about the techniques you use to communicate your ideas, and it's less about perfecting the formatting. Because as long as someone can look at this and still understand what you were trying to design, the design that you were trying to get across, then you are still going to be able to communicate your ideas to another human being, and that's what matters. I'm just adding my guidelines in now so that I can write accurately on those. Okay, and then I can do CPPHS, and I should be using a 2H pencil, but I'm not. You put your name, tech draw, I'm going to abbreviate to. I'm going to put the scale as 1 inch equals 1 inch. Today's date is 2/5/21. And the name of this drawing, we'll call this Toy Block 3. Toy Block 3. Even though it's really a sphere and not a block, we're still going to call it Toy Block. All right, I'm going to straighten the camera out. Now that you can see how the title block goes on there, I'm going to start drawing this. We already figured out this is going to be 3 inches wide. it's going to be 7.5 inches tall. Ooh, it is not focused. Focus there, camera. Hey, that's a little better. And let's turn the brightness down and make that a little, yes, contrastier. That's what I like to see. All right, I'm going to lock my menu again. Okay, so it is 7.5 inches tall. It is 3 inches wide. So I know that I'm going to have to make a 7.5 inch box, and I'm going to have to center it on this piece of paper. We remember we can find the center of a piece of paper with our diagonals. And I'm going to get in here for this way. Let's flip this. I'm bumping into everything. So I'm just drawing diagonals right inside that drawing area. That's the center of our drawing area. I need a 7.5 inch tall by 3 inch wide box on this. So by that, I really mean somewhere in the center of these two drawings. This is the same center point that's there. I need to come over half of the width and down half of the height. So half of 7, so I'm going to put a little 1/2 here, is 3 1/4. No, 3 1/2 plus 1/4. So, because half of 7 is 3 1/2. So 3 3/4. There we go. And the distance for the half of the width is going to just be 1.5. 1 1/2. So we'll say 1 1/2. So I'm going to come over 1 1/2, down 3 3/4, and that's going to get me to a lower left corner, and then I can find this center point right here. So other ways to think of this, there's lots of other ways you can approach this, but I like to find a lower corner and then go and find, because then we know from that lower corner, we're going to be able to come over 1 1/2, up 1 1/2 to find that center. It's all about placing it on the page. If in doubt, I hate to say it, but if in doubt, you could probably pick a spot, draw your circle, and then try to work up. You just don't want to run into the edges of the piece of paper. So actually, now that I'm looking at this, there's an easier way. So you're seeing an epiphany taking place right here. Why would I come over and down to find a spot only to come back up to the middle when I could just come straight down from the center of my page? Well, we could figure out how far that would be, right? Because if this is 1 1/2 inches up from the bottom, and our total distance down was 3 3/4. So that means this distance is 3 3/4. That means that the distance from here to here, if that's 1 1/2, if I do 3 3/4 minus 1 1/2, that's going to get me perfectly to the center of my circle where it should be, to be able to space this stuff correctly. So 3 3/4 minus 1 is 2 3/4 minus 1/2 is 2 1/4. So that means this distance is 2 1/4. 2, 3, I'm just checking my results. Yes. So I'm actually just going to come straight down from the center of this. So straight down from the center of my page at 2 1/4 inches. So 2. Now, look at this. I'm not coming perfectly straight down because my ruler might move, but what I'm going to do now, just to ensure that that's definitely the right distance, is I'm going to throw a vertical line down from the center. And there we go. So my point was a tiny bit off, so I'm going to go like this, and wow, I just found the center mark for that first circle there. So now that I've gotten this far, I know that I need a 3-inch diameter circle. So I'm going to set my pencil compass to half of that distance, which is 1 1/2. I'm going to just measure up 1 1/2 inches on one of these lines. So I put my 1 1/2 mark right on the center of the circle. And then I'm going to open my compass. Whoop, put it right on this. Wow, I nailed that. Maybe the last time I used this compass, it was 1 1/2. So I'm going to go like this. All right, that looks pretty good. Get me a circle on there. All right, there is my front view of this ball. And again, doesn't look like a circle because the view is a little distorted with the camera. That's okay. I need to go up from this 1.5 inches now. So I can measure up 1.5 inches on that line. And that 1.5 inches is the spacing that we're putting between the two views. I'm going to go up again. I'm going to go like this. You know what? I don't see why I couldn't measure up the same distance here, but let's do it a different way. So I'm coming up, there's the 1.5 mark. So this should be the bottom of the top view of my kind of ball-shaped block. So I'm going to come up from that. I'm going to come up another 1.5 inches. You know what? I could even cheat. I can use this because I know this is set at 1.5, and I'll just put a little mark there. And that's got to be the center of my top view, which is going to be up here somewhere, right? And it got chopped off on the page. So I'm going to make that into a center mark. All right, and then I'm just going to sweep me a circle. I didn't move my compass at all. And this is giving us the top view and front view of our ball-shaped block. Everything is looking good. Let's clean up some of these extra lines. And you might say, wow, that's a little ridiculous. Why did we just draw 2 circles? I did mention before, you could probably just put a note that says object is spherical. We could still do that. It wouldn't hurt to do that. So I'm going to put a note off to the side here using 2H to write my note. And I'm going to line it right up. I'm going to just use this line that was already here. And I'm going to say object is a sphere. And that is going to communicate everything that we need about this drawing. So, well, aside from a dimension, right? Now we need to know the diameter. So if we remember, adding a diameter in a dimension form is super simple. You're just going to line up some straight edge so that it is going right through the center of the circle. And you're not going to draw a line all the way from the center. You're going to start out here, and you're going to make an arrow that's pointing at that circle. So there's the line. Let's do a little horizontal line now. And the arrow is going to point at the circle. And then you can just put diameter 3. And there you have your finished drawing of a spherical ball. So this would be appropriate. We have front view, top view. It's the same in both views. We have a note clarifying that the object is spherical. So we have dotted all our I's, crossed all our T's, and that is done. The only thing left to do would be to go in here and darken up the border, maybe darken up those circles if they weren't dark enough already using an H pencil or something else like that. And I'm actually going to stop here because, as you saw before, drawing these vertical lines was annoying on the device that I'm working on. So we're just going to call that good. So hopefully this helps. Ask if you need help. And yeah, good luck designing, people.